times I hear people going, good, I'm just going to get rid of my W-2 and I'm going to go 100% in this. Be consistently patient and keep that W-2, but always focus and do small things every single day towards your passion or that side hustle. You'll eventually hit that goal. And then one day you'll be like, oh, wait, I can leave my W-2 job. It's time for me to leave because now my side hustle is becoming my main hustle.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Travel Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we're so pleased to have Todd Silance with us. Todd, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Great to be here. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks again, Todd, for being on the Road Less Travel Show. To start with, can you tell our audience a little bit about your background, how long you were in your original line of work?
Yeah, absolutely. My original, corporate job before moving and transition into real estate, which I know we'll talk about, started in the insurance industry. Like a lot of people, I think I took a path where I went to college and then came out of college and got a corporate job, which led me into insurance. And that was for about 15 to 16 years. I stayed in that W-2 world, handling a lot of different positions. Started out as a traditional claims adjuster on homeowners claims, where, I don't know if you guys have had any homeowner claim to your actual personal residence, or even some of the commercial claims to, it might be a multifamily property, but I was that insurance adjuster. That was kind of my first job out of college, where we would handle those claims. If something happened to someone's house, a leaky pipe, windstorm or something like that, I would be the guy for the insurance company that would go out to the house, take a look at it and handle it. But over the course of about 15 years, worked my way up to many different positions, and eventually kind of fell into the role of a learning and performance consultant, where I would travel around and work for a large insurance company, doing a lot of training, corporate seminars, kind of teaching stuff, but mainly focused on the personal lines homeowners claim side of things. So that was what I did about for, like I mentioned, 15 years before I eventually transitioned into real estate full time.
And then what I know you own some other businesses as well. So how did the transition go from that? Did you start building businesses or real estate as you're transitioning, or was it just one day you switched? And
yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, I didn't mention, but no, during that period of time when I was kind of working in a corporate job, early on, my wife and I, she was also working in a corporate job. We kind of looked to our future when we started kind of planning for a family and what we looked to do, what we wanted to do as we started to have kids, and kind of being available for our family and for our kids was something that we prioritized. And that led us to another business venture before real estate, like many years before real estate. Back in 2008, we decided, great time, awesome time in the market to purchase a business. But, we decided to jump in when everything around us was on fire in the financial markets and buy a business. And we bought an Anytime Fitness franchise. Mm-hmm. And during working, I stayed working in my corporate W-2 job in the insurance world. We opened a franchise, and kind of, nowadays, a lot of people have what's your side gig. Well, we opened a business as our side gig, and kind of we're working full-time jobs during the day. We would work our corporate jobs, and then afternoon at night, we'd be at the gym, getting our business off the ground. And that was 3 to 4 years of really hard work to establish that business, but it eventually became really successful. We were able to open a second location and kind of grow it from there. And as of now, we still own a location in Anytime Fitness franchise to this day. So we've been part of that community for just since 2008. So that's like 15 years as well. So it kind of coincided a little bit with my corporate job, where we were running a business, and I was also still working a W-2 job.
Excellent. Yeah. And then you transitioned into real estate. What avenue did you go down in the real estate world?
Yeah, well, the story for me is I started in kind of single family rentals and small multifamily rentals. In the community we were in for the business world, owning an Anytime Fitness franchise, and even when I was working in the insurance world, the most successful, whether they were insurance brokers or they were franchise owners, they owned real estate. They may have owned the real estate their business was in, small shopping centers, or the buildings with like, multifamily buildings, but like ground floor commercial space. They had a gym and apartments up above. And then I would travel and do a lot of training where I was meeting these brokers, and their offices were in the buildings, and then they own the building, and then there was all these apartment buildings or apartments up above. And every time I would talk to them, they were like, real estate is really where you want to be. Not only maybe own your own business, but if you could own the business, but then own the real estate. And that got me into the mindset of, okay, I want to go into real estate. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to start. It was literally turn on, Google it, found Bigger Pockets, started listening to podcasts, started reading all kinds of books to go, all right, now let me figure this out, how I can go about trying to transition into real estate. And the idea, though, wasn't to turn it into a job or turning it into a business. It was kind of, for me, just personally, hey, let's invest in real estate. And it's going to help us in our future to plan for our future, just passive income, have that passive income start to come in. And that's where I started. It was buy some single family homes, then to small multifamily homes. Then I started investing passively in syndication deals as an LP. And that really got my feet wet and really, this is where I think I want to go, is start investing in multifamily, but maybe on the active side of things. And I can start raising capital. I have a network. I've already brought in passive investors into my own deals that I was personally owning as I started to scale. And then that transitioned into, well, why don't we just buy some bigger stuff and, raise the capital and make that a part of what we're doing now. And then it turned into a business.
Yeah, Tom, that sounds like a familiar transition as far as the single family to multi, and then as in the syndication, as everybody runs the number on the single family and realizes how many that'll take to replace your income. Going forward, that kind of the law of large numbers and efficiencies make a lot of sense with the multifamily avenue. That's great.
Yeah, it really does. And that's kind of, as I just personally started to scale my own personal portfolio, like you said, I was like, wait a minute, instead of having all these single family homes with 15 water heaters, I could have one building with 15 water heaters in it and one roof and one plumbing. And it just, and the rents, multiply that by 15, et cetera. And that's really why I said, okay, it's time to scale it a little bit more.
Yeah. Todd, you touched on something that I think is, again, so important. And, I wish I had learned this so much, earlier in my life, et cetera. And that is that, listen, you got a job, you may love your job, do your job, but do something else on the side, do some other kind of revenue generating thing that's going to help you in your future down the road. Kiyosaki's been on the warpath about this forever. And that is that, listen, people don't have financial education in this country. I mean, my dad, he was a great guy, bad with money. So I didn't learn anything from him. I have a finance MBA. Did I do any, significant investing and a side project, a second stream of revenue earlier in my life? No, I started, in the recent number of years, but, you guys starting early with a franchise in 2008 and then, expanding into other things along the way. That's great. I'm, so glad to hear that. And I'd highly encourage people to, look into something along that line. Again, like I said, you may love your W-2 job. Excellent. Good. Enjoy it. Go make a lot of money, do well, excel, but at the same point in time, do something else as a second stream of revenue. So.
No, I agree 100% with that, Richard. And what you just said about the W-2 job, a lot of people, they might love it. And that's great. But with the financial education, a lot of times that's how I was coming out of school. And when I'm first working there is you only know that, okay, I guess my money just goes in, they match a 401k. That's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, even once I got into owning a franchise and I started meeting other owners, that's like small business owners, and not just in like the franchise world where I was in, but other small business owners. To them, that's like their W-2. That's all they know. And then what happens is I realized they weren't necessarily planning or having that side income or investments. It was, well, I'm focusing on my business and I got to make all my money from my business. And I put it back in there. And that's where, when I started expanding into the real estate world and bringing types of investments out there, especially in the multifamily space, I was able to, hey, wait a minute, start educating or providing an opportunity for business owners to diversify and invest and try to get some passive income for them.
Right.
Where, hey, get the benefits of real estate or invest in real estate. You don't have time to own a small apartment building or own multifamily, or just own real estate in general. But why not invest in it, and you can still get the benefits of it. So it kind of was like eye-opening to see. I only thought corporate, but wait, there's tons of small business owners that's their kind of W-2 job in a sense, is just business.
Yeah, absolutely. So Todd, think back to your, maybe to your insurance days, or I don't know, maybe your franchise fitness days. Is there a funny story you can share?
Yeah, I mean, plenty, and I don't know if any of you guys have actually had a personal homeowner's claim before, like if you had a fire or something happened to your house, because one of the things when I was in the insurance world early on in my career as a claims adjuster, especially when I started handling their large loss portfolios. So that's like total loss stuff, like house burns to a ground, they lose everything. It's a very emotional time. That's your personal home. And for when I would work with them, it's 6+ months you're working with a family or an individual and they lost everything. So it becomes very personal. But one of the stories that I still tell to this day that jumps out, I was probably in my mid-20s back then. And, I had a policyholder, their house burned to the ground. They lost everything. It was an elderly gentleman in his maybe late 60s. And this would be early 2000s. So think like internet age is really just coming up, message boards, all that kind of stuff. Well, this gentleman, he was a single guy. He's going to get, little over $1 million for his house, his contents, but he wanted to rebuild his house. So, we have to work with him with a contractor, but he gets all this money there was no mortgage on the property. And he tells me one day, we're working with him. He goes, hey, I've online met somebody overseas and they told me to come over and I'm going to go marry them overseas. And they said, but I have to bring all this money because the way it works. And I'm like, oh, I'm trying to, you've heard this story before, meet someone online, send me money overseas or come over. And I thought for sure, I'm like, we're never going to see this guy again. He's telling me he's going on a 6-month trip overseas, going to travel the world. He's getting married, never going to see him. He leaves, literally 6 months, don't hear anything. We're kind of at a standstill because in the insurance world, as much as we're working with the insured and we're rebuilding his house from a total loss fire, like he still has to sign off on stuff with these contractors. And I can't just pay, the insurance company. There's a lot of like forms and paperwork you got to do. So we're kind of at a standstill trying to figure out what's going on. About 8 months go by. All of a sudden out of the blue, I get a phone call. This guy returns. We go back to his house. Here he is, newly married. He married someone, he came back, has all kinds of pictures and stuff. He traveled the world. So it was a very interesting claim that I had. And like I said, this was early 2000s when this happened. And it kind of blew my mind that this guy survived, 1, and 2, came back and hey, he was married. Good for him.
So it was in some way legit. So okay. Yes. Wow, that's crazy because it could have ended so badly. Wow.
Oh man, for sure.
Yeah.
You're saying those emails I keep getting about the princess with all the money to import in the country, maybe legit?
Send it over there. You never know.
Yeah. So you're saying there's a chance.
That's right.
Exactly.
That is funny. Yeah. What was a kind of deciding factor to get you to change the road you're on? You mentioned as you're kind of planning for a family and everything, more time and prioritizing that. And you'd also had the business on the side that kind of ran the same timeline as your quitting your W-2 job or starting the same time, both about 15 years. But what was the final thing between your business up and running well, you still have the W-2? What was the transition point that made you want to switch over to real estate full time?
Yeah, great question. I mean, with the business that we had and running our franchise, that was our initial start on that journey where we thought we'd have freedom with my family. And that was kind of the why that you want to say is ultimately it was to be available for my kids, to coach their sports teams, etc. But as you guys mentioned earlier, there's people who love their W-2 job. And I actually really liked my job. As I progressed through that career, especially when I was a learning and performance consultant, it was great. I mean, I was traveling, teaching, running seminars. It was a really cool job that I enjoyed. But really that deciding factor is we had the business that was very successful, great team and a great staff operating the fitness business. And I was still doing a lot of that corporate consulting. And it took me away from my family. So it took me away by traveling, having to be, teaching these virtual seminars or even traveling to places, started to pull me away more and more from my family. And that was kind of that catalyst where I had started already investing in real estate, single family homes, small multifamily homes, still working my corporate job. But it got to a point where I knew I needed to scale, or I didn't say I needed to, I wanted to scale to be able to eventually replace my W-2 income and then have that freedom to be back available with my family. So that was that catalyst. And in about 2019, that kind of started propelling me and building towards that, so I could get my own personal portfolio together to be able to leave my W-2 job, which I was eventually able to do.
Great. Yeah.
Good. So, Todd, as you were kind of getting really, making that shift and starting to do, maybe it's the point when the inflection point where you kind of move from just the smaller multifamily or whatever into the larger stuff. Are there some obstacles you had to overcome?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just a different world. And what I mean by that is a different network. Because in the single family, small multifamily space where I got started, a lot of the smaller brokers, different property managers, it's a network where I was investing in my local market. I really wasn't looking at out of state. So when I made that transition, the hardest part was, again, that new network. Because the commercial brokers, it's a different game. You needed to be able to network and get into that kind of space, especially in a new market that I didn't live in. Let's say I wanted to invest outside of my local market a little bit. But even we bought some multifamily properties in and around where I live, because we just like that market as well. But it took me a while. I had to break kind of through that barrier with brokers, establish credibility a little bit. So that was the biggest change, or I shouldn't say biggest change, but the hardest part is building those new relationships. Somebody coming from the single family, the small multifamily space is getting that credibility, building the relationships with those larger commercial brokers.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, as you did that transition, and that maybe the actual answer to this, but what was one of your first victories you on the new path on the real estate side of it, anyhow, that you realized that this is doable, this is something I can achieve, and set this up as a serious career path?
Yeah, I think for me, what the part where I was like, okay, we can do this in the multifamily space is one of the smaller multifamilies that we first acquired was about 30 units. And by doing that in the transition of the management side of things, we third party manage. So I'm not in-house managing that, we third party manage. But from the asset management side, what transitioned was being a franchise or a business owner. Because a lot of the having to manage a business, or I should say the asset management side of things for a business, translated into managing and running a larger multifamily deal. Because just like we have we have employees in both, but you have employees and you got to run a successful business. The same is now we have investors. We have a lot of investors. So we need to manage that asset and have it perform for our investors. And I was able to take those business skills and really transition it into operating larger multifamily. And at that point, I was like, okay, now I just need to form partnerships. Now we need to find, who the areas that I'm lacking, who can I partner with, or what are there other people in my network to build that up? So now we can really scale. So for me, that was one of my initial wins where I thought, okay, I think this will I can transition into this and my skills translate pretty well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Todd, in more recent days, is there a humorous story you can share?
Yeah, when it comes to plenty in the multifamily, things happen at your properties all the time. But actually, I'll tell you a funny story. I'll go back to one of my before I got into multifamily, I bought a single family property. And I always tell this story because it goes to know your market, right? Know your market, or even the local community where you're investing in, even on a large multifamily, right? Don't buy something that you don't know if you're looking for a new construction build. Is it approved for that, et cetera? Well, on one of my early properties, we always want to renovate our properties, and we want to provide kind of a higher standard of living for tenants, whether it's multifamily, single family. So early on, I would go into neighborhoods, and we tried to buy some definitely value add properties that needed a lot of work, but we could keep the tenants in there without having to raise a lot of rent. I just wanted to improve the local community with a higher standard of living for those properties. We bought an older building that had a slate roof. And I don't know if you guys have experience with slate roofs, but in the Northeast, that's where I'm located. There's a lot of properties with old slate roofs. And in the community where I purchased it at, we were going to replace it. It was tarped. It was a bad building. So we were going to do new gutters, exterior, the interior. We're going to do the works to this property. And we did that. So we replaced it, new architectural shingles, etc. Well, about 6 months later, a storm came through the area and blew the gutter down, and it pitched the gutter. So all the water was running into the neighbor's property. And the neighbor goes ahead and calls the city, because they couldn't get in touch with me or whatever it might be, since it was a renter there. I get a call from the city inspector, and he comes out and he says, "Hey, Todd, just want to give you a heads up. The gutter needs to be fixed. No biggie. I know you'll take care of it," because he knew me from other properties we were now on. But he goes, "I did notice you replaced the roof up there, and it doesn't look like you pulled a permit." So there's one first lesson learned is, don't just assume your contractor, the roofer, is going to pull a permit on there, even though you would think they would do that. And he goes, 2, you're also in a historical district. Don't know if you went to the planning commission and the historical commission to get it approved that you could to not have to put slate roof back up on there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, is this really, we're in a historical district? Lesson 2, know you're right. Know where you're at is a historical district, what needs to be done to the property. So I had to go to the historical commission and pull up, explain what we did, get the approvals, pay for all this stuff. And he goes, "Listen, however, we got to verify what was on the roof prior to you replacing it, because if not, you have to put back what was on the roof." And I said, "But the rest of the neighborhood all has architectural shingles. I'm one of 3 properties that still has slate roofs." He's like, "You got to get approval. And if you didn't, you're going to have to go ahead and rip the new roof off and go put slate, which would be super expensive." But he goes, "Let me just double check real quick and pull up in our system what type of roof you had prior to that." Because at this point, I'm just kind of, "Listen, I'll do whatever you need to say." He goes on Google. In his system, they have Google Maps, like Street View. And this was back in 2019. For whatever luck that I got on this, Google happened to update and do a new Street View like July of 2019. I replaced the roof in May of 2019. So the Google Street View had the new roof on it. He looks at it and goes, "Oh, you're good. This looks like it's an architectural shingle roof on it. You're all set then." He's like, "Just pay the permit and the update." He's like, "You don't have to put slate on it." So I won't tell you what town this is, just in case the old city is listening to this story. But that was a funny story that I think relates to kind of doing your research. Don't make assumptions that contractors know this or they're going to do things, because they won't. And it ultimately comes back on you as the owner of the property or the business owner. Like even now, as we buy larger buildings, we always make sure we're the asset man. If we're the asset manager, we're like, it's on us to know these things.
Mm-hmm. I had a experience with my personal house where I rebuilt a just half-baked basement, and did it right. And this was right after I was also redoing a nasty weed infested falling away wall hill at the bottom of my property, where it was literally going to pull the deck off my house eventually. So I built a retaining wall. Well, I didn't pull a permit, and the city threw the old red card on me. And actually, I think what it was is that I'm in a town, and I think they basically called the county up and they said, "Hey, you're not doing your job. This guy's doing stuff." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So I had to go explain to the town I'm an idiot. And then I had to go explain to the county I'm an idiot. And well, I haven't done any work of any substance since without a permit. So I'm making sure I'm staying on top of that. So yeah.
I'm always at the now when I talk to certain contractors, I'm like, it's no exterior. They're not going to see, we could do, renovations or work. I'm always like, listen, it's going to come back to bite me. I'd rather, if there's upfront cost or delays because you got to go through permitting, architectural plans, let's just do that, because then I don't have to worry anything then, or even when we go to sell the building, if you get, tagged with something at that point too.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, Todd, where are you today on your journey in real estate?
For me right now, again, we with our company, Summit Capital, it's relatively new. My business partner and I had our visions aligned. He owned another company, I was owning a business, and we've kind of come together to form a real estate investment company. We're providing value to investors. We're looking for value add apartment buildings where we're in different markets where we could syndicate and bring in investors. Or the other thing we look for is ways we can partner with other operators that might be larger, more experienced than us, that we can learn from, but we can bring value from, whether it's capital, but asset or construction management, because that's kind of a little bit in our background as well. And the biggest thing for me is just from an education standpoint, because I come from not only a corporate job, but also a small business world, even though it's a franchise. I have that soft spot where I really want to educate and kind of let other small business owners know that they can invest in real estate, just because I'm passionate about it. That's where I invest a lot of my own personal money in it. But it can be that passive income for them. And it can be them to diversify, not only putting stuff in the stock market, but it'll allow them, maybe they can even reinvest some of those profits back into their business, because that's what they love. That's what they do. They're super passionate about owning, whether it's a fitness franchise, it could be a Dunkin' Donuts, whatever they're doing. And that's what they want to do. Great. But let me educate and teach you a little bit about, hey, there's other options out here and you can invest passively in and still operate and run your business. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Nice. Todd, is there anything you do that perhaps through your business or personally that you can share that you do to give back and help others in some way?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, a couple of things through my business and also on the real estate side of things. All our properties, whether they're value add, we kind of have a standard to what we want to elevate those properties to from a living, for living standard, you would say. And for us, that's important. It doesn't matter if it's a C-class property or it might be in a rough neighborhood. We always want to renovate all those properties to a certain standard to provide that living space. It's somebody's home, regardless if they're paying rent or not. So that's really important for us in all the communities we go into. And then from a business standpoint, on the franchise business, we work with, we do a lot. I mean, I'll give a shout out if anyone wants to look up online, Anytime Fitness Broadensville. If you go check us out, in our local community, we're really big on giving back to our local community. So we do a lot of events. We work with our local food pantry. We also are part through Anytime Fitness corporately. Where we give back. They have a foundation that will help provide seed capital for veterans looking to start their own business or open their franchise. So we've been a part of that since I think 2014, 2015, where we donate every month part of our business revenue to that charity, the Heart First organization. So it's a great organization, and that's big on our business side of things.
Nice.
Oh, thank you. Well, Todd, is there something you've recently implemented in your business that allows you to scale and grow at a faster pace?
Yeah, for us, that is a great question, because I would say marketing was never our strong suit. It's just and that is something we've implemented from automations, where I think automation allowing to make multiple touches to our investors has been the biggest ROI that we've seen, is getting in front of our current investors and our potential investors a lot more, and putting in automations with email marketing. It could be social media, etc. That has been also, it's just taken a lot off of my plate, off of my business partner's plate by investing in it. There's an upfront cost and monthly cost depending on types of software and subscriptions you use. But for us, it's been 10x in what we've seen in return.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that stuff is such a game changer. What people had to, individually type in emails, you can, like you said, you can manage lists much better and people, and you can track all that, right? Who opens it, who's interested, who to follow up with. Yeah, it's very helpful. And, I think everybody probably struggles with trying to optimize that the best in the beginning, because you have so much time to dedicate to different aspects of growing your business. And yeah.
And you know what? And I mean, talking on the real estate, it's funny because on our fitness business world, we do all that stuff. We have systems in place, but yet when I came over, we're really trying to, okay, we got a new deal, we got to raise capital, we're bringing in, it's old school emails. And then it's like, wait a minute, we do it over here. Why am I not doing it on my real estate business? I don't know. That was maybe just a blinder that I had up and just thought we couldn't do. But since doing that, it's been a game changer.
That's great.
Nice. Nice. Todd, what advice would you share with somebody who's considering making a path change?
I think, Richard, I'd go back to what you even mentioned earlier, and advice to myself back then is you mentioned about, hey, have that side income or that side hustle right now. But what I would say is sometimes I hear people going, good, I'm just going to get rid of my W-2 and I'm going to go 100% in this. Well, I would say be consistently patient in regards that you keep that W-2 because you still need to have some income coming in, but always focus and do small things every single day towards your passion or that side hustle, because as you consistently work towards that and just be patient about it, you'll eventually hit that goal, or you'll keep taking those steps towards reaching that goal. And then one day you'll be like, oh wait, I can leave my W-2 job. It's time for me to leave because now my side hustle is becoming my main hustle. And it's now that's going to be my passion, and that's going to be my potential job.
Nice.
Yep, that's great. Well, Todd, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out and learn more about you and Summit Capital have going on?
Yeah, they can, listeners can go to our website at summitcap.co, kind of check out what we have going on, any new projects. You can shoot me an email at todd@summitcap.co. I'm also on LinkedIn or Instagram. You can find me there, and love to connect with listeners, potential investors, or even I'll say if there's any potential business owners or looking to buy a franchise, I'll give you tips and tricks if you're interested in that as well. I just love talking about it.
That's great. And we'll make the show note or links in the show notes available below, so it'll make it easier for listeners to find out. Well, Todd, we really want to appreciate you being on we want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show today. Great conversation, and wish you continued success.
Great. I appreciate being here. Thank you, Bill and Richard.
We also want to thank our listeners for giving us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like our show today with Todd Silance. So thanks again, Todd, for being on. And we want to remind everybody a couple of important things that Park Capital Partners has going on. First, we have the Park Capital Partners Value Add Fund, which is a 506c fund open today to accredited investors. And next, we have the Park Capital Partners Foundation that Bill and I created as another way that we give back. Very quickly, how that works, it is, first we fund the operations of that property, so of that foundation. So all the money donated to the foundation goes to do its best work, which is to help others. And then we also donate personally, donate corporately, and then finally, when investors invest with us, we make a donation to honor that investor to a pre-selected list of 15 different charities, including one that focuses on helping feeding America, and as well as one that helps veterans causes like Wounded Warrior. So please reach out, give Bill and I a call. Happy to have a conversation with you anytime. ParkCapitalPartnersLLC.com. And again, thanks again, Todd, for being on. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.